Hello and welcome to our session today on Maker STEAM e-learning activities for parents and educators. I'm Cindy McKinney with Region 8, and joining me today is Laura Smith, one of our Makerspace facilitators here at Region 8. And she is going to share some great tidbits with us about activities that parents and educators can think about asking their students to do and their kids to do this May and over the summer and beyond. So Laura, what do you have for us today?
Well, today we're looking at some activities that really focus on student choice and student products, things that they can make and be actively engaged in. And they're activities that are helpful for both educators and parents. As an educator and a parent, these are things that I would think about for my own kids and for my own students. And we're really glad to be here today with Region 8 with you and Josh and Mike Gorman, Jane Gorman, and Chris Riley as we continue our professional development with our Schwab grant. This is an exciting time for students. When we get to May, students are really tired of the classroom routine, and they're really looking forward to doing some things that are different. And that's true for teachers as well. And as we've been e-learning, it's true for parents as well. We've had a lot going on these last few weeks with our e-learning. It's been very focused and a lot of changes and a lot of learning, a big learning curve. And as a teacher, one of the things that I would do in May is to try to make sure that I had created my content so that we were easing up a little bit on strict content. It wasn't quite the heavy load, and doing more activities and more things that were engaging to students in a different way. And that's important to do now as well. Even though we're e-learning, this is the time when we used to do field trips, when we used to have field day, right? We'd have a lot of time outside, and we want to continue that type of format for our students as they're working through this e-learning. It's been a long haul and the end is in sight, but we all need to get there. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and we want to make sure that they're easily accessible for parents. I think Region 8 has had quite a few requests for some parent activities, and also that they work for educators as well. There are things that you can do now, but also we're looking forward to summer coming up. And so for some parents, they've been with their children for many, many weeks, and they will want some activities that will move beyond just our educational time period. So these activities that we're looking at, they should be a little lighter, more fun, easy activities. Not that they're not going to be content focused, but we're looking at approaching in a different way with challenges, lots of hands-on activities. We'll go for things that are multi-grade level across the subjects, and a lot of things that we'll show you might be specific for a certain grade level, but you can transfer and see how you can change that into something that would be suitable for a different grade level, as well as for subjects. We're really going to emphasize the 4 C's, what we call the 4 C's in education, that idea of creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. These are important skills that we want our students to be really focused on right now, and it's a good time to put the emphasis there. Almost all the sites that we're going to look at are free, and the ones that aren't, I'm going to show you how we can hack those and make them so that they work for you. And some of them are free just now during this COVID period, but most of them are free for the whole time. There are opportunities to work with families, with classrooms, and also a lot of these are opportunities for a student to work on something that is really of interest just to themselves. We're going to start off with exploring. We want our students to be lifelong learners. We want them to get interested in topics and to explore them. And so that's something that we can really emphasize at this time of year. And these are things that you can have your students explore independently, or it might be something that you do as a classroom or a family if everyone wants to be involved. But one of the big things is student choice. We want our kids to have the opportunity to learn what they're interested in. And of course, we can tie those to different standards and different content, but the more we can engage them in their interests, the more enjoyable it will be for everybody. we want it to have a purpose, right? We don't want them just to get on the computer and research something. And so a lot of times you can have opportunities for them to talk about what they've learned, metacognition, to think about their thinking. And one of the quick and easy ways you could do that as a parent is you could say, okay, I see that you're looking at dolphins. I can't wait for dinner when you can share what you've learned. Or once your grandparents be excited when we FaceTime them tonight that you can tell them what you've learned today about jellyfish. So sometimes you want them to write something formally, but sometimes it's just a conversation, a way for them to talk about what they've learned. A couple of the sites that we have here right now are there's some Facebook sites that zoos are putting out. Philadelphia and Cincinnati Zoo are two that come to mind. And you can go on during real time and they'll give you interviews and give you tours of what's going on at their site. There's a lot of real-time web live cams and like the jellyfish one at Monterey Bay, but there's also a whole series of live cams that you can watch organisms in their habitat and how they work. And there's often a lot of content associated with that there's other reading that you can do, as well as seeing what's new. It's something that a student could check in every day and see how things are changing in that area. And it's not just animals that you're looking at. You can explore watching the International Space Station as it flies over. There's also a lot of citizen science activities, is what that's a general term, but it can have a social studies aspect as well, where they're actually looking at a specific project that interests them, and they're helping progress made in that specific field. For instance, there's an app called Merlin that you can get on, and you can identify a bird that you see, and it'll take you through a series of steps. You identify the bird, and then you record that, and they use that information to see the migration patterns of the birds as they're moving up from Mexico up to Canada. And so you're actually a part of science collecting real data. And there's all kinds of ways that you could turn that into some type of language arts project, or you could talk about how it's related to what's happening at our current events. And so there's a lot of options here. And we actually have a webcam here in Fort Wayne on the AEP building for falcons. Another opportunity is to provide challenges for students. It is interesting when you use the word challenge. How you frame something really changes how a student looks at it and their interest in it. And I was really impressed that the Indiana Department of Education, since we've started quarantine, has put out these weekly challenges. And their website's very accessible. And each time there is opportunity for every grade level. So I have here as an example, grade 3. And notice that it has content knowledge, and then it gets into the 4 C's that we were talking about, the communication, creativity. And one of the big things that you want to provide students with at this time is choice. They've gone through a lot of, you have to do this, and you have to produce, and you have to submit it in a certain way. And so now is a great time to provide that choice where they can decide what they want to do. And you can see for 3rd grade, there's a lot of different options here. And so they can pick something that is of interest to them. And one of the things that I really want to point out is that notice that we're looking, the focus is continuous learning. We're not drilling down content, it's continuous learning. We want our students to be actively engaged and maybe loosening up some of those, you must do this and you have to do that. And so this is a really good site to use. And they have challenges all the way back from the beginning of the week. Some other challenges that are very fun and hands-on is you've probably heard of Rube Goldberg before. And that's where that illustrator has taken the most simple task and made it as difficult as possible. And there's a challenge out there that relates to our COVID situation where it's how to get some soap. And I sent that to one of my 6th grade teacher friends because that's when they do a lot of physics and simple machines. And that's basically what Rube Goldberg is, a series of simple machines. And she sent me back this great video that her 6th grade student had created. And it was so interesting to watch this little 6th grader tell the teacher how she had gone through the process. She was being an engineer. She had figured out how to do those STEM activities and had books and dogs and all kinds of things involved. It was really very fun to see what she had learned. So there's Rube Goldberg challenges out there. The one that I'm showing right now, this pin box, This is actually a site where you go on and it shows you how to make pinball machines. And they have kits that you can purchase. But you don't need to purchase the kit. If you're like me, you have boxes showing up at your doorstep on a pretty regular basis. And so you really have most of the tools that you need. But you can use that site to kind of hack that and see, well, what other things did they use? How can we figure this pinball machine out? There's a really great video called Kane's Arcade, where a boy in California made a whole arcade out of using cardboard boxes. So we're really getting some creativity here and some critical thinking that is something that we want our students to be doing. And you can get them off and running in a project like that, right? You get them started and they are busy and active and really engaged. NASA has one for creating a rover, and you can see how simple the products are that you need, things that most people have around their house. And so you can do these kind of activities, create these kind of challenges, and make these real world connections. And these are important tools for students to be thinking about, how can they overcome these problems? Because it won't work the first time, right? And so we can build that resiliency of, right, what can I do to make this better? How can I improve this? Those are good skills that are lifelong skills. This is a good time to try something new, right? Maybe your students have shown some interest in wanting to code. And so there's a challenge out there about coding for this Dragon Quest. There's also a very, very good program called Scratch that MIT has produced that's free, that helps you step through coding. So once you get onto the site, it's pretty straightforward for a student to follow the tutorials and to create things. And creating things is something that kids really innately want to do. And this is a good time for them to be actively doing those types of creative activities. Cooking is a great one, and this site is great because it has not only cooking but gardening. Two of the sites that I would have used it a lot as a parent. I had my own kids doing a lot of cooking and a lot of gardening, and this is a great time to be doing something along those lines. And of course, you can turn cooking, you can show measurements. You're using a lot of math, you're using step-by-step instructions, language arts, you're doing a lot of science, chemistry. So you can really tie them into subject matters. As a teacher, you can see ways that you might do that. And of course, with cooking, the end result is always delicious. Well, maybe not, but that's something that you've learned too, right? If you're like me, sometimes the ingredients that show up at your house for your deliveries aren't exactly what you ordered, and you have to be creative and figure out how to use them anyways. Another site that I have up here is National Geographic. They've opened up their site for free for this time being, and they have an incredible array of options that are social studies, language arts. Really, you can connect to any subject and for any grade level. They have some very creative videos, and it's a great way to have your student have some choice into what they're exploring. You can also think about learning something new, like you could have kids might have an interest in learning how to knit, or you could think about things that you did as a child, or maybe your parents did. My dad used to love to play jacks, and so have them learn how to play jacks, how to create hopscotch. All those things are really good and engaging and help them be thinking critically and getting outside and enjoying this spring that we're having. Speaking of getting outside, getting active. If you are like me, the one thing that I needed my students to do is to burn off energy this time of year. As a parent, I need my kids to burn off energy at this time of year. And so really we want them to get active. And so I worked with one of my colleagues who's a phys ed teacher, and she's been doing e-learning for 7 years. So she has come up with some really great sites. And these are two that she really likes that are really family focused. They have families getting into the walking program is one of them. The other one is doing some cardio workouts. And I love that it shows the whole family getting involved and using this time to help stay in shape, because it's very easy to just be sitting on the couch or sitting in front of our screens. My own daughters have gone online and found core workouts, and they found Pilates classes and yoga classes. So there's a lot of options out there. And you can also provide choice. The gym teacher said that was one of the key things that they found for kids to be engaged is if they can help choose. And these are some of the sites that she said that they really enjoyed. The first one is what would you rather? And so it shows two pictures on the screen, and depending on which picture, you have to go to a certain side of the room. And so, for instance, if you picked the kangaroo, the timer would run out, and after 10 seconds, you've made your choice, and then it's going to show you, well, the kangaroo side of the room has to do this exercise. The cheetah side of the room has to do that exercise. And so it's very engaging, and it's on a timer, and it moves very quickly, and kids get a lot of different options. A scavenger hunt. A scavenger hunt is something that has a lot of abilities to be used in all kinds of ways. But here it's used as a way to get outside and get active, and gives you a lot of different ideas of things that you can do. And obviously we have to be thoughtful about how many people can do that and what groups can do that. But you can have individual scavenger hunts. I've seen a lot of people doing scavenger hunts for their kids' birthday parties. Since they can't have other kids over, they've done a scavenger hunt. We used it in biology class, a scavenger hunt, using it with our vocabulary words, and students had to go outside and find things and take pictures and create a presentation, and that was their scavenger hunt. So there's different ways that you can use that same idea. The bingo sheet is another great site where they have a lot of downloadable choices. And so you can choose what activity you're going to do, and maybe over the course of a week, have to do so many of them to create your bingo sheet. I've actually had hacked this as a parent long ago, and we had a chore sheet, and the kids had to choose. They had to do so many chores based on their sheet. I could see using this bingo sheet in a variety of ways as a teacher and a parent, but this one happens to be focused on physical education. So these are some good sites that you might look at. Another thing that we should think about is that this is a good time for students to learn something new, right? And maybe not something that is specifically on your standard, but something that's maybe something more that they can explore, that they could enjoy on their own and do their own individual projects. And so there's a lot of really good activities that are fun and that are focused for kids. They're really focused on kids. So this cabin fever science is a great one, where this young lady goes through and does basic science experiments with things that you can find in your home. And so it's at like a elementary level, but there's another site that shows the same kind of experiments, but shows you how you can change them so that they're more appropriate for high school students. And even those experiments are simple, it doesn't mean that older students can't learn from them and understand them. The Chicago Museum has put out a great website with all kinds of activities that are engineering activities, science related, social studies, that have a lot of options and give you a lot of ability to have students learn something that is of interest to them. Again, adding this choice. So the mystery science, the science at home, these are all some really good activities. And I think even if you are not a science teacher, you could find ways to really tie these into some of your standards. Or again, maybe it's as a language arts teacher, they have to provide a report for it. And it's one of those things that students can really look at what's of interest to them. What's of interest to them, because again, we're looking for this continuous learning. We want students to be creative, and one way is through music. And there are a lot of nice sites out there. There's some YouTube channels and Facebook sites that are really focused on families. And so Berkner has a good site, and this Hootenanny that we see with the puppet and the young little girl here, a family presents some music and sing-alongs, and there's a puppet involved as well. When I was watching the Cinco de Mayo one, they brought in Spanish words, and it was really just a joyful video. And the kids were actively engaged. And I thought, if I was a teacher and I saw this and I saw that puppet, it would make me think of other ways I might use a puppet that has nothing to do with music, but might help, you tell a story using puppets. Most of us have those mismatched socks at home. So something that a kid could create that puppet and use it in a variety of ways. There's also little maestros who are providing free piano and guitar lessons. And even if you don't have a piano or a guitar, they show you how you can download that app. And there's online virtual time, real-time lessons. There's lots of different options that way. And there's a lot of apps out there. I know my students used to love the GarageBand app, where you can create your own music. This Make Music and Beats is another app that has that ability that is really gives the kids a chance to create something musically. Another thing that you could think about is that you could flip these. And so maybe your teenager doesn't want to watch Hootenanny, but perhaps they could create their own video. And they might teach a young child a song, or they may provide a song that they send out to neighbors, or communicate in another way. And so this gives you lots of options. There's karaoke sites out there, so there's all kinds of family fun you can have that way. You can also get creative with art activities. This Lunch Doodles with Mo Williams has taken off, and it is a huge hit. The kids are really enjoying doodling along with Mo, and he shows you that anyone could do it, which is a great thing for our students, right? Even if you don't think you're good at being an artist, gives you an opportunity to learn how to improve. And sites like Crayola, their websites are full of different activities that are art related. And again, it has a nice educational component that you could tie it into other activities that perhaps as a social studies teacher, you want them to draw what's going on during the Civil War. Instead of just giving an oral report, they can do other activities. I was really impressed to see that our own library, Allen County Public Library, has presenting on these Creative Bug online classes. And so a lot of things that students might be interested in, free classes to go online and learn how to do various crafts, get creative, and think about some of those different ways that we might present information and that students might present information. One of my friends and colleagues is actually on WPTA on Tuesdays, giving art classes every Tuesday, and they're doing a lot of great activities. And so again, lots of access out there for ideas. Storytelling is important for young and old students. Doesn't matter what your age is, stories are important, and they're integrated into every subject matter. My students love to hear the stories about scientists and how they learned things. And so there's stories that really relate to every subject. There's some very interesting sites out there. One that I really like is The Kids Are in Charge. I follow Farnham Street. They do a lot of really interesting things on their blog. And his kids, during this quarantine time, he sent them off to do interviews of people that he thought that they were interested in subject matters that they were interested in, and the stories that those creators had to tell, like intellectual property. How do you decide whose it is? So they have live video, but they also have stored those videos, and so you can go and learn a lot of things. The same thing is true with, you can do that with Skype a Scientist. LeVar Burton now has a podcast where he's doing pretty much YA stories, but really nice alternative, and made me think of other podcasts that are out there. There are a lot of really well done podcasts. You probably have heard of the one called Serial, and it can bring up some controversial subjects, some very current event type of subjects presented in a different way. And so that might be something more for the older students. There's a lot of celebrities reading stories, and so Storyline Online is one that has that people they may have seen or you may have seen in reading some books. I know a lot of teachers and principals are doing stories online, and even you can get stories online from space. And again, this might be an opportunity that you can think of, how can you flip this? So maybe your student is creating those videos. Maybe they're reading a story online. Maybe they're creating their own podcasts. These are things that students are capable of doing, and that as we challenge them, they'll jump in. Even when I looked at some of those musical apps, I thought of students that I had who created their own apps to do certain things. And presenting them with those opportunities really helps them think their way through some of these options. The last one was always my number one go-to: get outside. Anytime you can get students to do something outside, it changes the whole perspective. We would go outside and take nature walks. We would go outside and practice our vocabulary on chalk in the sidewalk. We would go outside any opportunity that we could, because this is the time to do that. This is the time to get them out and active. And it's when everything is changing and changing very quickly. And so we can really see spring happening in our neighborhood. And it doesn't matter where you live, even if you have a small space with no grass or you have a nice big space, there's opportunities to get out there. There's a city challenge where you're looking for biodiversity this time of year, again, as we're watching things migrate through and insects come out of hibernation. And that's Little Rivers, our wetlands, has done some of the city challenge, and you can see more information off of that. You can even go to a place like the Little Rivers. They have their floating dock now where you can go as long as you're doing your social distancing, but to get out into nature. Backyard challenges are a really popular activity where you go and look at a specific area of your yard or a park or near the sidewalk, and see what's growing there, how much biodiversity there is, what kind of bugs and worms and insects can you find, what kind of plants can you find, what different flowers that, plants at different stages with their flowers. And you can compare that to something more of a monoculture like a lawn and see the difference in biodiversity at those different types of areas. There's a lot of online sites where they're actually taking their walks and they're finding different places that plants grow. Plants are very adaptable. And so there's a middle of a concrete sidewalk and there's plants growing there. And then some people are even taking chalk and writing down the plant names as they're identifying them. There's a lot of wildflowers peeking up right now. And so learning to identify some of those. Kids in the younger grades, for a lot of them, they are into bugs, right? And so this Pest World is another really great site, and it gives you all kinds of opportunities to see a variety of different bugs and look at them in different ways and learn a lot. And one of the things that they show is to make a model. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, wow, there's a lot of content that I had as a science teacher, but that most teachers have, that I could have my students create a model. So something as simple as a model of a cell. And they could do that virtually. They could do that with toilet paper rolls. They could do that in all kinds of ways. And so, again, even if you're not going to have the Pest World site doesn't have content, you can see how you could take some of those ideas and make them your own for your own class. Again, we're looking at our students we want them to have continuous learning. We want them to be thinking and creating, and we want them to be actively engaged. And so how can we change what we've been doing and add more of that type of fun and excitement and exploring? I can tell you with my 8th grade students, the 2 tools that I could give them that had the most interest for them were a magnifying glass and a pipette or a eyedropper. If I gave them those 2 tools, they would be busy for hours. And as they explored different things and looked at different aspects, and the simple tools like that, a lot of times if you give them those kind of things, they're off and running, and who knows what they might get engaged in that you can work through and help them continue to learn during this time. So again, the whole emphasis here is we want to give them projects that they are actively engaged in, that they are hands-on projects, that they are really thinking through the process. These 4 C's in pedagogy language, we often consider them to be the executive functioning skills that we're looking for. And these are the types of skills that students really need to be successful in school, successful at home, and successful in a career. They require students to plan. They require students to process. They require students to try and try and try again. They have to organize their ideas, organize their activities. And so they really provide the opportunity for those 21st century skills that we're looking for. And so I hope that you've been able to see all the different possibilities out there and how you might take some of these activities and tweak them for your own student, for your own child, and help them to explore the world around them, help them to be actively engaged, and really, I love that term of continuous learning. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Laura. As a parent, I've jotted down a couple of these sites too that I think for sure I want my boys, I have 2 boys, the teenagers, and I want them to have the opportunity to be creative and explore and just regain their curiosity, because I think you're correct when you say that, you know, the last 6 weeks or so, it's been a lot about what do I have to do to stay safe physically, to what do I have to do to succeed academically. It's all jumping through hoops. So now it should be an opportunity for them to just be free and explore, and you've given us some great resources to start thinking about that. Is there a document that is going to be attached to this PowerPoint to give us the actual site so that people don't have to hunt and peck?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'll have all the different websites that we've talked about, and maybe
Super.
even some extra ones.
So you want to definitely check out the link that is below the video with all the resources on it, because Laura will have all of the websites from today and then maybe even a couple of extra ones. So thanks again for tuning in today, and have a great day, and we hope to see you soon.
And thanks to everybody.